My twins stopped eating. Tyler said nothing. I quietly finished my wine. The next day, the family accountant called her. There's been a revelation about the source of your son's wealth. What Margaret didn't know was that the multi-million-dollar investment portfolio she'd been bragging about for 3 years didn't belong to her son. It belonged to me. Let me back up. I met Tyler Morrison at a community fundraiser in Charleston. He was charming, wore an expensive watch, drove a BMW, and talked about his portfolio with the casual confidence of old money. His mother Margaret made sure everyone knew the Morrisons were established, her word, repeated at every opportunity. When Tyler proposed after 8 months, Margaret's smile was tighter than her facelift. At our engagement dinner, she pulled me aside in the powder room. I hope you understand prenuptial agreements are standard in families like ours. Her diamonds caught the light. It protects everyone. Of course, I'd said, applying lipstick I'd bought with my own money. I completely agree. What Margaret didn't know, what nobody knew except my lawyer, was that I'd built and sold a software company 3 years before meeting Tyler. The sale was quiet, handled through an LLC, and the $16 million sat in carefully structured accounts under my maiden name, Whitmore. I'd been tired of the startup grind, tired of being the youngest woman in every boardroom, tired of proving myself. So I'd taken a sabbatical, volunteered at nonprofits, and tried to figure out what came next. Then I met Tyler, who was handsome and kind and made me laugh. The money conversation came up naturally. He mentioned his trust fund. I mentioned my consulting work. Neither of us was lying exactly. We just weren't telling the whole truth. The prenup Margaret insisted on protected Tyler's assets from me. I signed it without a lawyer present, which made Margaret positively glow with satisfaction. Smart girl, she'd said, as if I'd just passed a test. What nobody knew was that 6 months into our marriage, Tyler's portfolio had taken a devastating hit. His father's business partner had embezzled funds. The trust fund Tyler had always relied on? Nearly gone. He'd come to me panicked, ashamed, broken. I'm supposed to be the provider, he'd said, head in his hands at our kitchen table. I'm supposed to take care of you and the business, Anne. We're partners, I'd interrupted. Let me help. So I had, quietly, through a series of carefully structured investments that appeared to come from Tyler's accounts, but were actually funded by mine. I rebuilt his portfolio, invested in 3 companies that went public, bought the commercial properties his mother was so proud of. When the twins were born 2 years later, I'd established their college funds. When Margaret bragged about Morrison family money, she was actually bragging about Whitmore family money. Tyler knew. He was grateful but also quietly devastated. We'd been in therapy for a year, working through his feelings about masculinity and provision and worth. He was getting better. We were getting stronger. But Margaret didn't know any of this. Which brings us to Thanksgiving. We'd hosted at our house, the house I'd bought, in Mount Pleasant. Margaret arrived in her Mercedes, the one from the dealership I'd anonymously invested in, giving Tyler friends and family, pricing he thought came from his college roommate. She swept through the door with her signature criticism disguised as concern. Darling, are those store-bought rolls? Well, I suppose with the twins you're busy. She air-kissed my cheek. Though I always found time to bake when Tyler was young. Dinner was beautiful. I'd cooked for 2 days. Tyler's sister Amanda had brought wine. His brother Chris had brought his new girlfriend, a sweet schoolteacher named Jen who Margaret had already decided wasn't good enough. The twins, Harrison and Nora, for years old, were showing Margaret their drawings when she launched her attack. Tyler tells me you've been looking at private schools, Margaret said, sipping wine. That's ambitious. We think Palmetto Academy would be perfect for them, I replied, passing the potatoes. Expensive, though. What is it, $40,000 a year per child? Margaret's laugh was crystalline. But I suppose Tyler can afford it. The Morrison portfolio has been performing beautifully. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Amanda shot me a sympathetic look. Margaret continued, warming to her topic. Of course, we established Tyler's trust when he was born. Proper planning. My father always said marry for love, but marry smart. She looked directly at me. Some people understand that. Others. She trailed off meaningfully. Mom, Tyler said quietly. Please. What? I'm simply saying your father, and I made sure you were set up properly. Made sure you'd be attractive. She emphasized the word. To the right kind of person. The table fell silent. Harrison looked between us, confused. Nora had stopped eating. What Margaret means, Tyler's father Gerald tried to intervene, is that we're happy Tyler found someone he loves. Of course, Margaret agreed. Though love and financial security often overlap, don't they? She turned to Jen. You're a teacher, dear? How noble. Chris, darling, I hope you're being smart about things. That's when Margaret made her announcement. She only married Tyler for his trust fund. Gold digger written all over her. The twins' forks clattered onto their plates. Amanda gasped. Gerald said, Margaret. Tyler's face went white. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I quietly finished my wine. Set down my glass. Met Margaret's triumphant gaze. Dessert? I asked calmly. I made 3 pies. Margaret blinked, confused by my composure. She'd expected tears or anger or defensive denials. Instead, I served pie. Made coffee. Chatted with Jen about her second-grade classroom. Kissed my children goodnight. Tyler was silent, miserable. On the way out, Margaret pulled him aside. I heard her whisper, You need to protect yourself. She's after everything you've built. After everyone left, Tyler and I cleaned up in silence. Finally, he spoke. I'm sorry. I should have defended you. I just froze. I know. I loaded the dishwasher. But Tyler, this can't keep happening. Your mother has been taking credit for my work for 3 years. She's been treating me like hired help who got lucky. And you've let her. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell her the truth. His face went pale. She'll be humiliated. She humiliated me. In front of our children. Just give me time to figure out how. But I was done waiting. The next morning, I called Gregory, the family accountant who'd been managing Tyler's accounts, my investments, for 3 years. Gregory knew the truth. He'd been the one to help me structure everything to protect my assets while rebuilding Tyler's. Gregory, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Call Margaret. Tell her there's been an irregularity with Tyler's accounts. Tell her you need to meet with the whole family to discuss the source of the Morrison portfolio's recent success. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. You're sure? I'm sure. It's about time. That afternoon, Margaret called Tyler 6 times. He was at work. She left increasingly frantic voicemails. The accountant called. Something about irregularities? What's going on? Did she do something? I knew we should have protected your assets better. When Tyler got home, he was ashen. Gregory called my mother. She thinks you've been stealing from me. I know. This is going to be a disaster. Maybe. Or maybe it's going to be the truth. The family meeting was scheduled for Monday morning at Gregory's downtown office. Margaret arrived dressed like she was going to court. Power suit, full armor of jewelry. Gerald looked confused. Amanda had taken the morning off work, smelling drama. Chris came alone. Jen had wisely stayed away. Tyler sat next to me, holding my hand so tightly my fingers went numb. Gregory opened a folder. Thank you all for coming. There's been some confusion about the Morrison family finances that needs to be cleared up. Confusion? Margaret's voice was ice. Gregory, if that woman has been accessing Tyler's accounts. Mrs. Morrison, please let me finish. Gregory's tone was professional but firm. 3 years ago, Tyler's trust fund suffered significant losses due to the embezzlement situation with your husband's business partner. Gerald winced. Margaret's jaw tightened. At that time, Tyler's portfolio was worth approximately $200,000. Today, it's worth $12 million. Amanda whistled. Chris's eyes widened. That growth didn't come from the Morrison Trust, Gregory continued. It came from investments made by your daughter-in-law. The silence was absolute. Margaret's face cycled through emotions, confusion, disbelief, anger. That's impossible. She does consulting work. She doesn't have that kind of money. Actually, I said quietly, I do. Before I met Tyler, I continued, I built a software company. I sold it for $16 million. The sale was private, handled through my LLC. I've been using those funds to rebuild Tyler's portfolio, invest in properties, fund the twins' education accounts, and yes, pay for this house we're sitting in. Margaret's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. The commercial properties on King Street that you've been bragging about at Bridge Club? I bought those. The stock portfolio that's been performing beautifully? My investment strategy. The college funds for Harrison and Nora that you told your sister showed such Morrison responsibility? My money. Tyler. Margaret turned to her son, desperate. Tell me this isn't true. Tyler straightened his shoulders. It's true, Mom. I wanted to tell you, but I was ashamed. I felt like I'd failed. Like I'd let everyone down. But the truth is, I married the smartest, most capable woman I've ever met. And instead of appreciating her, you've spent 3 years treating her like she's beneath us. I was protecting you. From what? I asked. From a woman who loves your son? Who gave him back his confidence? Who's been quietly fixing the family finances while you took credit for work you didn't do? Margaret's face crumpled. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked old. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Would you have believed me? I asked gently. Or would you have found another reason to dismiss me? She had no answer. Gregory cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Mrs. Morrison, your daughter-in-law has requested that all assets be formally transferred into her name, with Tyler listed as beneficiary. Given that she funded everything, this is legally straightforward. No, I interrupted. That's not what I want. Everyone looked at me. I want joint accounts. True partnership. I want Tyler's name on everything equally, because that's what marriage means. But I also want honesty. I want credit for my work. And I want respect. I looked at Margaret directly. I didn't marry your son for money. I married him because he made me laugh, because he's a good father, because he's been working hard to be a better partner. The money was always mine. I just chose to share it with the man I love. Tyler's hand found mine under the table. Margaret sat very still. Finally, she looked at Gerald. Did you know? He shook his head. I knew about the embezzlement. I didn't know about the rest. She turned back to me. Her voice was small. I've been taking credit for your work. Yes. And telling everyone you were after Tyler's money when I was the one supporting the family. Yes. A tear ran down Margaret's carefully made-up face. I've been terrible to you. Yes, I said again. But my voice was softer now. I don't know how to fix this. You could start, Amanda interjected, speaking for the first time, by treating your daughter-in-law like a human being. Maybe even like family. Margaret looked at me for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. The meeting ended. Margaret left quickly, Gerald following. Chris caught my arm on the way out. That was the most badass thing I've ever seen, he whispered. Jen's going to lose her mind when I tell her. Amanda hugged me. I always knew you were too good for this family. Tyler and I drove home in silence. Finally, he spoke. Thank you. For what? For not leaving. For fighting for us. For being stronger than I was. I pulled into our driveway. Our house, truly ours now. We're partners, remember? That means fighting for each other. That evening, Margaret sent a text. Can I take you to lunch this week? Just us. I have a lot to apologize for. I showed Tyler. He looked hopeful. What do you think? He asked. I thought about the last 3 years. The subtle digs. The assumptions. The Thanksgiving announcement. But I also thought about partnership, about family, about the long road ahead with young children who needed their grandmother. I think, I said slowly, that everyone deserves a chance to do better. Tyler kissed my forehead. Have I mentioned that I'm married to a remarkable woman? Once or twice, I smiled. Though it bears repeating. 2 weeks later, Margaret took me to lunch at her country club. She introduced me to her friends, properly this time. This is my daughter-in-law. She's brilliant. Built and sold a tech company before she was 30. She's been teaching me about investment strategies. It wasn't perfect. Old habits die hard. But it was a start. And when Margaret's friends asked about Tyler's success, she smiled and said, he married well. Very well indeed. I raised my glass of wine and met her eyes. For the first time in 3 years, there was genuine warmth there. To family, Margaret said. To honesty, I countered. We clinked glasses. It was enough.